Sorry, I can't actually see in this very bright sunlight. Can't see whether it's on record. I might have put it on to onto still photo instead of video. So I'm off now to going to Taliban. I usually end up every day going to Taliban. So I'm going to worship at the great god ATM in the hope that, that some money will have arrived there, which we transferred. Finding that in the Philippines they hold on to money a little bit longer. It's all in a column. It's not in anybody's hand, is it? It's all about moving figures from one column to another. So just looking, hadn't intended to do a video, thinking that there was nothing to talk about, but when you're on the road in the Philippines there's always something to talk about because of the way that the different way that they operate. Now I know a lot of expats when they come to the Philippines will think that there's no rules, but there are rules, but they're different. And all of those things that we've been taught as foreigners living in our own land don't count here. The biggest realization that anybody has to make when they arrive here is that they are a foreigner, and they're here now living within a culture that is already established and has its own rules. They're not the same rules as ours. I know one of the main things that I always taught living in the UK was, because of the way that the roads are built, the British were notorious for building roads and communities which were totally opposite to the way that they built in America. In America they tend to build on a grid system, and everything is really easy to navigate. The roads run one way, and then what the avenues run another. I don't know whether that's exactly the wording that they use, but one kind of road runs east to west and the other runs north to south. It's something like that. So if you want to know, if you seeking directions, it's very easy. They just say, well, you go north along so and so, and then east along, and it's really very easy. I remember when my daughter came and she tried to live in London, and she used to come home almost in tears because she had asked for directions and they'd said, well, you go along here until you come to the Dog and Whistle, the pub, and the pub's on the left hand side, so what you've got to do is go opposite and do a right turn, and she could not understand the way that she was being directed. And I remember Americans stopping me in London and asking for directions, and me saying, oh, well, you just go, it's a short walk along here. I said, well, no. Americans would always say, no, wait a minute, a short walk. How far is it? And they'd want you to tell them that it was half a mile or a mile and a half or a 10-minute walk, and they would suspect a Brit of telling them that it was a 10-minute walk, because a Brit would walk quite happily in London, especially for 10 minutes without thinking about it. But Americans, they don't do that. It's one of those that if you don't park close to the sidewalk, they'll say facetiously, oh, it's all right, don't worry about it, I'll walk to the curb from here. So everybody's different. When you come to the Philippines, hey, guess what? Everything's different. So one of the things that Filipinos do, which is difficult for a foreigner to understand, is they double park. And they double park in a situation where there is no need to. And if they thought about it for a moment, from a foreigner's perspective, they wouldn't do that. Now, when foreigners learn they learn how to drive. Sorry, I'm focusing on the road at the same time. And they're told, don't double park, because it means that someone is going to have difficulty getting through that gap, or it will no longer be two-way traffic. It will be reduced to one-way traffic. And so that's something there that is difficult to get used to. The other thing that's very difficult to get used to, and I tried to find the words to explain this, is that tricycles are not fast. So here we are, and I'm driving along now along the National Highway, and there will be trucks and cars, new trucks, new cars, similar to the Raptor that I'm driving now. And these vehicles are capable of high speed. But the motorcycles and the tricycles are not moving at high speed. And so as I move along the National Highway, I'm moving the National Highway, it leads from city or town to town, and it is really, from my perspective, or from say a truck driver's perspective, trying to get from one town to another, will want to be going at much higher speed than the locally minded tricycle driver. So tricycle drivers, they're out there and they're on the lookout for a fare, and if they see a fare, they'll slow down and pick somebody up, and actually it's a wonderful mode of public transport, because tricycle drivers will load anything onto the tricycle. I don't know whether they own the tricycle themselves, but they're on quite a modest powered vehicle of 150cc normally, and those vehicles are already carrying their own weight, which is power to weight ratio, and then they load onto that, they load a tricycle which is meant to carry 4 adults, but will often carry 15, yes, 15, because when school starts, and it's what we now know as face-to-face schooling, where it's people sitting at a desk listening, or supposedly listening to a teacher on an ideal day with the wind behind them. They actually they'll carry any number that they can actually load on, and that includes kids sitting on the roof or hanging off the back. They can do it. They'll do it. And they're on the same road as a truck which is trying to get from place to place, town to town, to deliver materials of some kind, product of some kind, and they want to move at high speed, and they do move at high speed. And then you've got the white van. Now the white van is part of the, really what we must call the public transport system, and they offer a service which is based on getting people from one place to another fast and cheap. They're relatively cheap, and we'll be seeing one pass in a moment. They drive, if possible, at the speed of light, and they're not the best mannered drivers that you could hope for, but they get you there fast, even if your knees are up around your chin, because in one of those vans they will pack probably 18 or 19 people on a normal day. So you've got that. Then you've got this truck that I'm stuck behind right now that's doing 40. Now the motorcycles will whiz by at a much higher speed than that, and so actually will tricycles, but this truck in front is probably delivering something like gravel, and it's lumbering along at 35 or 40. So all of this traffic is all mixed up, local traffic, going all the way through traffic. Now he's turned off and he's going a shortcut which will take him probably past the, well, it will take him past the terminal which they put out there now, and he'll probably be going at least to Trinidad or Ubay or possibly Carmen, these other cities that are that way, all on this humble little road which used to be, until a few years ago, used to be 2 narrow lanes. Now when you get the double parking of the Filipino, when they pull off, but they only pull half off, which means you can't pass on your lane. All of these things, they're difficult for a foreigner to understand. And if you're coming here and you're going to be driving, prepare yourself for this, because compared to the orderly, over-regulated way that we are taught to drive in places like the UK and America, you're going to be in for a shock. This will be bedlam. My mother used to call things bedlam. Oh, it's a bloody bedlam. A bedlam being what would American call it? A madhouse, crazy house, that kind of play. Well, I'm at my crossroads now, and I'll be going into Taliban. Because of the power cut, there's no traffic lights. Actually, this always used to be a free-for-all anyway. It's more like a T-junction down a crossroads, but it's all the traffic in and out of Taliban, and it can get very hectic. Well, they put a set of traffic lights in, which since the typhoon there's no electricity anyway, so we're back to no traffic lights, and it's a free-for-all, hoping that someone will give way, which if it's a motorcycle, doesn't usually happen. So I will end off here. Thanks for listening. It's a roadside or roadway meandering, if you like. But anyway, off I am.